Welcome to the City Manager's Report. The City Manager's Report, a look at city updates and municipal news, and a preview of the next Oshkosh Common Council meeting agenda. Your hosts, Emily Springstrow of Oshkosh Media and City Manager Mark Roloff.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on GovTV for your City Manager's Report, your source for all of the latest and greatest news and updates here in our city of Oshkosh. I'm your host, Emily Springstrow, joined as always by your City Manager, Mark Roloff. Mark, thanks as always so much for joining us today.
Great to be here, Emily.
So we're going to go ahead and dive into the hot topics for the first half of today's show. We'll take a little break and then we'll return with a review of the City Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, December 13th, 2016. And we've got a lot to talk about today, Mark, so we're going to get right into it. First thing, of course, something that everyone has been talking about for quite a while now is the possibility of the Bucks D-League. What is the update on this, Mark?
I wish I could give you some great news or something, but there still is. We're waiting for the smoke to rise from the chimney to give us an answer. We're still waiting for an answer, and that's really all I can say right now. We, in terms of what the decision is, we don't know what the decision is, and we gotta keep moving forward with whatever we think we need to do if we happen to be lucky enough to get it.
So we're still kind of hanging in there to get any kind of an update, and when we'll hear more about whether the Bucks will go with Oshkosh or not. So you think that the chances of this happening in 2017 are kind of going down a little bit?
From what I hear from the investor group, which is really the group that, we haven't had direct dealings with the Bucks. I met with the representatives of the Bucks once several months ago. The local group is really doing all of that work because they're the ones negotiating. What they tell me is they're still looking at a 2017 goal, which surprises me because to get a building built is going to be very difficult. But what we're doing, because they've told us that would still be their goal, we have to make some assumptions and then work towards those assumptions. For example, one of the sites that they've been looking at is the Buckstaff site. So all we're doing is doing things that we need to do anyway for the Buckstaff property, but we're doing it earlier rather than later. If we don't get it, it's work we probably needed to do anyway, but we would have probably spread it out a little longer. But we're working on things. We're going to be meeting with council to brief them on what we need to do to get things done, to do environmental work on the Buckstaff property, get the site cleared. Those were conditions of our grant that we got from the state anyway. So we have to do these things. So it's not like it's going to be wasted work. It's probably going to be worst case scenario of we hurry up and then we wait, because if we don't get it, then we have a piece of property that we've cleared, and then we have to figure out what we do next with the property. But we don't even know if necessarily that's the site. I mean, we like to think it might be, but we don't know for sure. And the Bucks, until they make that decision, we have to wait and see.
Yeah, so regardless of what happens, we're preparing, we're doing positive things happening over in that area, and encourage people to watch the Top 10 episode because there's a lot of really cool things and inspiration ideas for that area too.
We've done a lot of great work, and I'm really proud of the staff and everything they've done. And for their sake, I'd like to see this happen because they put so much into it. If they don't, they've just gotten a lot of work done that we needed to get done anyway.
Definitely. Well, thanks for the update, or what you can give us for the update, Mark. Next thing that we want to talk about is something that I think is probably circulating around the water cooler a little bit too. Is recently there was an article in the Northwestern about some Boatworks apartments, the possibility of some apartments going up on the Boatworks property. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
The Boatworks property is a property that the city has owned for a number of years. Actually, we've owned it since before I got here in 2008. As you can see from the map, it's at about the northeast corner of Michigan Street and West 4th Avenue. It's adjacent to where we put together the new picnic structure and restrooms, as well as the bridge. But Chet Wiesenberg, a local architect, has asked for an option and received an option from the Redevelopment Authority. And this is a conceptual rendering of what he gave us. it's superimposed on there to give you an idea of what it would look like. But there's that lagoon area that the bridge crosses over that we have for the trail. So it gives you a rough idea of what he would be looking at. This is all very conceptual. What we have is we've given him an option, the Redevelopment Authority's given him an option, and he has a year, which could be extended out to 18 months, to do his due diligence, which means he has to look at the feasibility of what he has on a piece of paper. But right now, all we have is a piece of paper with a nice architectural drawing, but how we move from there is really up to the work that Mr. Wiesenberg will do to see how feasible this thing is. If it's feasible and he wants to do it, then we would enter into an agreement to have a development plan for the property, and then that development plan itself would go to council for them to review. But all we did right now is just say, hey, we like the fact you're interested. We've been asking for people to inquire about this property for the last several years. So
well, it's such a cool area.
It is, and I think everybody's getting excited because you have the Morgan District, which is another concept that's being done, and I think Mr. Wiesenberg's looking at what's going on in Morgan District, saying, you know, I think this might be something I might be willing to do. Mr. Wiesenberg is working with other folks on the beach building next door to City Hall, so I imagine they're looking for another project, and I'm happy they're looking at Oshkosh.
Yes, it's an exciting update. Like you said, it's not a part of the Morgan District, it's adjacent to it, but still a really cool area over there. And as far as timeline goes, this is not going to council, this is still with RDA right now, and the timeline that you laid out really does make a lot of sense. So we'll stay tuned for some more updates on that. I know we're very eager to hear about where that goes. Mark, next thing that we want to talk about are some holiday updates. This is the last episode of 2016 before our top 10 episode. So we want to get the word out there about some of the different holiday updates. First one being Go Transit. Of course, their schedule always changes depending on when the holidays are. This year, with Christmas on December 24th, Christmas Eve on December 24th being a Saturday, bus service will end early at 5:15 p.m. The last trip for Route 10 service to Neenah will be at 3 p.m. And then Route 10's 4:40 p.m. trip will only go as far as Jackson Street and Cope Avenue. And of course, no bus service on December 26th or January 2nd.
Yeah, those are official holidays, so we'll be closed that day, along with Go Transit. So yeah, no bus service on the two Mondays there following the holidays.
Yes, and then their office will be closed on December 23rd, 26th, and then January 2nd. So just to make sure you're planning your trips ahead of time around this holiday season. Second thing that we want to talk about is Public Works, and that is the collection schedule. Collection will be not happening on December 26th, and then the remainder of that week will be one day late. Same goes for New Year's. No collection on January 2nd. Remainder of the week will be one day late for that as well. And then, of course, City Hall will be closed on December 23rd and 26th.
As well as January 2nd.
As well as January 2nd, yep. So it's kind of, it's always funny when the holidays land on a weekend because then those days do get made up during the weeks before and after, so.
Right. The one thing that we didn't mention, you know, if you, because a lot of people are going to have off on December 23rd because Christmas Eve is on a Saturday, we will have garbage collection on Friday, December 23rd. So if your normal pickup day is Friday, December 23rd will remain your pickup day. So,
Definitely.
And everything's on the website. You can check it out.
Everything is on the website, ci.oshkosh.wi.us, or check out the city's Twitter page at City of Oshkosh or our Facebook page, Oshkosh Media. We always post any updates or things going on all of those social media channels. Excuse me. And then, of course, something that we have to talk about that I don't always like to talk about, and that is snow. Mark, we've already gotten a little bit of snow. It's definitely very cold outside today. So we just want to get the word out to those people, too, that as we start to receive that weather, what the snow removal regulations are. So that is property owners are required to clear their sidewalks within 24 hours.
Yeah, there's no change in what our rules are. You know, once the snowfall is stopped, we count forward 24 hours, and then that's when you're expected to have the snow removed. If you don't do it and we get complaints, we'll send out somebody to inspect the condition of it, and then we have to remove it, and it's at a cost to you. You don't want to pay that cost. I don't want to charge you that cost. We just pass on the direct cost, but it's time-consuming and it's costly for the residents. So you know, we just let you know that get your sidewalks cleared, and if you're at a corner, you got to make sure that ramp is taken care of. And then, of course, please don't cover fire hydrants. That's for your own safety, because if there does happen to be a fire, you want the firefighters to be able to find that hydrant. A lot of folks do a great job of clearing around the fire hydrant. If you want to do that, that's great. That would be wonderful, but at a minimum, please don't cover it.
And then, of course, don't throw the snow into the street. That one's kind of a common sense one, but it's a safety issue. So just keep in mind those people that are using those sidewalks. If you're walking on the sidewalk, you don't want to be blocked off by the snow and ice. So keep that in mind. Again, all that information is on the city website for your review. And now it's that time of the show where viewers have the chance to ask their city manager anything they want about things that are going on right here in Oshkosh. That's right, it is the question mark segment. So let's go ahead and see what the question is this week. All right, Mark, so the question this week is, when are inspections going to begin in the rental inspection program? Now, this is another hot topic here in Oshkosh, so what do you have to say about that?
It certainly is a hot topic, and it's controversial, and we understand that. Right now, we are sending information out to our landlords to let them know that, about the registering for the program, which is required under it, so that we have a database for contact information. The idea there is, if we're aware of something, we can bring it to their attention. Sometimes landlords don't live in town, they may not be aware of something going on. This will give us that contact information that's important, so that we can let them know if there's a problem with their property. The inspection part, following the registration and everything, then we'll begin the process of contacting tenants and letting them know that we are going to make this service available to them. If they don't want us to enter their apartment or their unit, we won't do that. I know there's some terrible misinformation out there about us knocking down doors and things like that. I can't imagine that people would believe that nonsense. If there's an imminent danger, we have to go to court and to get entered. But that's going to be so few and far between. If people want us to enter the property, they'll let us know. If they don't, we won't. It really is that simple. But we're going to be contacting tenants and letting them know, and then we'll conduct inspections for those people who request it.
Yes.
It really is that simple.
And that's a very important point to make, Mark, that the tenants are going to be scheduling their inspections. So they will know when the inspector will arrive and how long about it will take. I think it usually takes 30 minutes. In most cases, it's much less than that.
It's a very basic checklist
Yes.
of things that we're going to go through, and those things that we will be communicating with everybody so that they know, here are the things we're going to be looking for. You know, some of the obvious things are smoke detectors and CO detectors, and those are for everybody's safety, which all these things are. But little things like, if there should be a deadbolt, if there's no deadbolt, we're going to point that out. Windows, plumbing, water heater chimney, that's where we've had people have been in danger because carbon monoxide can come out of those if they're not properly done. Plumbing, venting, heating and ventilation. You want to make sure that things are vented so that things don't go back into your house. Again, like carbon monoxide. We're looking out for people's safety here, and we want to prevent tragedies like that what happened in Oakland, California. That's what this is all about. It's about health and safety. Wiring is a huge issue. We just want to make sure that if some work's been done, that it's been done properly. Because if it's not, it's going to pose a health and safety risk. And I don't know a lot of those things. That's why we have professionally trained inspectors that know the codes and know what's right and wrong. And if there's a problem, we can point it out and give an opportunity to get it fixed. That's what this program's about. It's about health and safety, and I hope people understand that.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Mark, for that information. A great question this week. If you do have a question for City Manager Mark Roloff, send it to us on Twitter at City of Oshkosh, send it to us on Facebook at Oshkosh Media, or you can email it to questionmark@ci.oshkosh.wi.us, and he'll answer it on the next episode of City Manager's Report. We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we're going to hit the City Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, December 13th. We'll be right back.
Experience Deck the Halls at the Oshkosh Public Museum. See the historic Sawyer home decorated in holiday splendor reminiscent of the times. The life-size Christmas Village exhibit showcases a festive display of themed miniature holiday trees. And at the center of it all is an elaborate wooden toy circus, now through December 31st. Kids admission is free, with adults only $3.50. Deck the Halls, a holiday experience at the Oshkosh Public Museum. Discover more at oshkoshmuseum.org.
Welcome back to City Manager's Report. Thanks again for joining us. Now it's the second half of the show. We're going to take a look at the City Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, December 13th, 2016. Mark, at the very beginning of the meeting here, we have the 4:45 p.m. workshop on the pilot program for the lead service lateral replacement in room 404. Tell us a little bit about what this program is.
The background to this is that everybody is familiar with what was going on in Flint, Michigan, and the concern over lead pipes. And one of the areas of concern are the lead services, which are on private property. And the DNR has given the city of Oshkosh a grant of $500,000. And before we start implementing programs through that, we want to brief council on what some of the rules are. Because there's a lot of things that we could do, but $500,000 will not go very far. So we want to make sure that we effectively use that. We're looking at an example here of what we do when we're doing street construction and when we're replacing laterals. Laterals, by definition, are what go from the water main to your property line. That's not what goes in your property. We're not allowed to be on your property for that. Mm-hmm. So these are just simply replacing lead laterals. And pretty much if you have any plumbing pre-1960, you probably have a lead lateral going into your property. So when we do our street improvements, we're going to do these, we're going to change these. And as the video shows here, we replace it with copper. But that doesn't take care of the service from your property line into your house. And we want to take a look at what we can do to possibly make some programs available so that people can maybe get some of these lead services replaced. Eventually, they are going to have to get replaced. We monitor things to make sure that there's no danger, but the thing that happened in Flint is there was a thought that there wouldn't be danger, and then the city did some things, and that's what triggered the lead pipes kind of flaking off and creating problems. We want to avoid those things. So we just want to get council up to date on where we're going, because by the end of January, we have to submit a plan to the DNR about how we plan to implement this program.
Excellent. Lots of great information. Again, at 4:45 p.m., right just prior to the meeting starting. Mark, next thing that we want to talk about right in the beginning of the meeting is public hearing to repeal and recreate Chapter 30 zoning ordinance and zoning map effective January 1, 2017. What's the update here?
This is the second reading of an ordinance to completely redo our zoning code, and there were some issues that were raised at the first hearing that we've actually gone back a month and just had good discussions with neighbors, particularly along Jackson Street, because of their proximity to the university and zoning around the university, cleaning up a couple other areas, and then the council, they still wanted to have final say on what are called conditional use permits, and so we've made that language change, and we're bringing it back to council for final adoption. A lot of great input, which was really the purpose of this process. So the process works, and we're real happy that we're going to be presenting something to council that has a good deal of valuable public input.
Wonderful. We're excited to hear more about it at the start of the meeting. Next items we want to talk about, Mark, numbers 10 and 11, approving the determination of necessity to acquire property at 716 South Main and 710 South Main. Tell us a little bit about these properties and why we're wanting to acquire them.
These properties at the southeast corner of South Main and 7th, and these are properties that are in our what are called our South Shore redevelopment area. And the whole idea is that we have a redevelopment plan to redevelop that area, clean out some of the old buildings if they're falling on hard times. And these were some properties where brick was falling off, and the property owners actually approached us. The paper had it mixed the other way. They had approached us because they were seeking a building permit, and they said, well, are you interested in purchasing it? And we said, well, it is in our redevelopment area. So the Redevelopment Authority has authorized, has the ability to acquire properties. We fund that, so we have some community development block grant dollars available. And it's specifically for blight removal. So we're going to acquire these properties and then land bank it until a bigger redevelopment plan is identified for the larger area.
Wonderful. Kind of part of that South Shore redevelopment program or plan that we had talked about.
Yes,
earlier.
and and that thing is a living work, a living document. So as we land bank it, then we look for opportunities to redevelop it, and then you'll see that move forward.
Well, it's exciting. A lot of opportunity there.
Absolutely.
Next item, Mark, is number 12 right after that. Approve environmental service agreement with AECom for site redevelopment at the Buckstaff property. Wouldn't be an episode of CMR without Buckstaff mentioned. So tell us about this agreement here.
As part of the agreement that we reached with the bank and the owners of the property, and because of a grant that we got from the Department of Natural Resources to clean up the site, we have to do some environmental work, and AECom has been hired or will be hired to do that environmental assessment of that property. This is the latest and greatest of where the property is. If you haven't driven by the Buckstaff property recently, it's coming down. And once it's down to the bare concrete down there, we have to take a look at just one last check to make sure there are no environmental issues out there. We don't suspect there are, based on some earlier issues. There are property stability or soil stability issues, because we're Sawdust City for a reason. There's a lot of sawdust, a lot of spongy soils down there. We suspect it's sawdust, but we want to check everything out, make sure there's nothing else there. But I feel pretty confident that after this environmental evaluation, that we'll be ready to remove the concrete and then be ready for development. I know then it folds into the Bucks thing. What's going to happen?
That was going to be my next question.
if something happens, then we're ready. But the whole idea is we were going to do this regardless of what was going on with the D-League issue. This is something that we're required to do by our grant anyway. So we're getting it done.
Cleaning up what's there. I like it. And then the next item that we want to talk about on the council agenda, Mark, is number 13, Resolution 16-553, approve renewal of agreement for bus service with the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. What does this agreement allow, and how long is it?
A lot of universities have entered into agreements with their local communities to encourage their students, faculty, and staff to ride the bus whenever possible. And we had an agreement previously with the university, and we're going to get what can be a 3-year and extended to a 5-year agreement. Approximately $80,000 will go to Go Transit that the university will pay, and they are really encouraging the students to take use of Go Transit, not just to get to school, but also to get around town. Parking is a huge issue in every university. The more students that use busing instead of drive, that's going to limit the amount of space they have to set aside for parking, and of course all the environmental benefits it has as well. So we're really happy that the university is working so closely with us to have this type of partnership.
Yes, and this is a 5-year agreement, you said, correct?
It is a 3-year for sure, and then a 2-year option, but they've been working very well, and I suspect that we'll be extending it automatically at the end of the 3 years.
Yes, what a wonderful partnership with UWO. Very cool. One thing that we wanted to talk about under the consent agenda before we get into the last half of the agenda here is item number 21, Resolution 16-561, and that's approve ambulance rates. Tell us a little bit about what exactly is getting approved here.
Not a lot of fees are getting changed, but there is one new fee, and it's due to something that's been growing in frequency. Our ambulance units have been called out a lot for situations where it's not necessarily an emergency. Sometimes the people just want to get an assessment of their health, and then, or they've fallen down and they want to, they've fallen down, can't get up, literally, those types of cases, but they don't require a trip to the hospital or anything like that. And a lot of cities are experiencing that, and so there's something called a lift fee where we'll go out there, we'll do a quick assessment, get them up if they don't want to go to the hospital. If we've provided some minimum service to assess them, we will charge them. And that's something that, given the number of calls that have been increasing in that area, we feel it's necessary to manage that demand. And that's pretty much what that is. We are not getting a lot of money from ambulance revenues. We've actually knocked that down by about $500,000. Half of our patients are on Medicare. 35% of our patients are totally uninsured. Only 8% of our population doesn't have insurance, but 35% of our patient base is uninsured, so that's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And only about 12% are covered by private health insurance. So the lift fee is covered by some people's insurance, and we're hoping that this will help manage that demand.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense and is very understandable. Under pending ordinances, Mark, number 27, Ordinance 16-567, canceling December 27, 2016 council meeting. And this is kind of a seasonal thing that we do most years.
Council has been canceling that second meeting for a good part of the last few years. It's required to do it by ordinance, so it's an ordinance like parking regulations and things like that. That's why we have a really big agenda this time, and we'll probably have a really big agenda early in January. But we manage that through the season, and if there's any emergencies that come up, we can certainly have a special meeting of the council, but we don't want to have one on December 27th.
Wonderful. So cancel December 27th meeting. So if you are tuning in looking for that, it will not be there on GovTV. Under new resolutions, Mark, 30 and 31, kind of related to each other, approval of the fee schedule for sewer use charges and establishing the 2017 stormwater utility rate to $160.04 per year. Give us a little bit of background on what this is and what the rate changes are.
Well, both of these are for the what we already have reflected in the budget. I believe the stormwater rate is about a 7.5% increase. We're still doing a lot of work that we're doing to catch up with previous issues as well as follow current mandates for stormwater quality. But most of our work is flood control, and we're going to continue to do that. Overwhelmingly, our citizen surveys say we want you to take care of flooding, and we'd rather have the water be in a pond rather than our basement, and so that's what we're doing. Sewer rates are also going up. I believe it's 8% or something like that. So that's a sizable increase too. Again, taking care of those infrastructure issues. We still have sewers from the 1880s, so we're going to have to continue to improve our sewer system as well as our stormwater system.
Yes, and it's always great to hear updates on stormwater in the sewer because we are making strides in improving that, and people are starting to see those changes. So it's always great to hear that. Last item that we want to mention here on the agenda, Mark, is an update to the TIF application scoring sheet. This is under your city manager announcements and statements. Tell us a little bit about that.
A few months ago, the council asked us to review what we use as our scoring sheet to evaluate tax increment financing districts, or TIFs. The idea behind that is there was a perception that we're just willy-nilly looking at these and saying, oh yeah, let's do them. We do go through a process. We formalize that so that people understand a little bit of it. But we only had one scoring sheet, but there are kind of two different types of tax increment districts. One is a blight removal, like the Buckstaff or the South Shore area, where it's really being done for economic development purposes to improve the value of properties in the area. Whereas there's also industrial development, more on the outlying areas, brand new industrial parks, things like that. And they really are two different things. Industrial development is, good paying jobs, really great tax base. The other one is to restore a tax base that's been terribly performing. So the idea is evaluating those on two different criteria. We're going to present these to council to get some feedback, and later on we'll come back with a more formal policy for the council to adopt.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that during your statements in the meeting, Mark. And now we are just about out of time on City Manager's Report. So thank you, as always, for joining us today, Mark.
Yeah, real happy. Great year.
Great year. Again, the City Council meeting is this Tuesday, December 13th at 6 p.m. You can watch it live on GovTV and on our website, oshkoshmedia.org, or you can listen to it on 101.9 Oshkosh FM, which is also online and on the TuneIn Radio app for mobile devices. Make sure you like Oshkosh Media on Facebook or follow us on Twitter for all of your community and government programming and updates, or check out our YouTube channel for government meeting replays and past episodes of your favorite programs. Don't forget, if you have a question for City Manager Mark Roloff, you can send it to us on Facebook or Twitter, or email it to us at questionmark@ci.oshkosh.wi.us. As always, thank you so much for joining us on City Manager's Report, and we'll see you next year.